Oh, hello. Hey, how are you? Welcome into the college football recap show you didn't know you need till you had it. Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Cheers. It is where we sit here every Sunday morning on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel and we recap the Saturday that was over Bloody Mary. We drink, we laugh, we cry, we yell, we scream. Sometimes we're even happy here on Sunday, Bloody Sunday, which is where I want to get started with the first bit of my happiness for the first time this season. I would like to selfishly cheers my Arizona State Sun Devils. You see it behind me. I've got the Pat Tillman picture. I've got the Sparky helmet there. I've got the other helmet there. I've got to cheers Sean Aguano and the Arizona State Sun Devils for winning yesterday against a ranked Washington team, by the way, who was a trendy team throughout the year, and Michael Penix and the Washington Huskies. Trenton Bourguet came in for an injured Emory Jones in the second half. And it's kind of my jumping off point for the start of this week's Sunday Bloody Sunday with the Sun Devils getting the upset win over the Washington Huskies. You've seen it with Feinbaum and my recaps. You've seen it with me talking about it throughout the year through 6 weeks. How the trend right now in college football is fire your coach, hire the interim, try to get ahead of the college football coaching market, and potentially see if the interim is a guy that can make a move and give your program some juice. So Sean Aguano, impossible situation with Herm Edwards getting fired a few weeks ago, the NCAA investigation looming, players in the portal, seemingly a lost season. And every week they've played and fought a little harder. By the way, this 3-game stretch, their schedule, Utah, USC, Washington, 3 ranked Pac-12 teams. And I'm not going to make this all about Arizona State because it's not entertaining to you. What it is a jumping off point for me in that if you find the right interim that can get your team to believe, just to get your team to believe that what happened prior to him taking over was an aberration, that we're going to get the program heading in the right direction. Here's where I'm going with this. Yesterday, Aguano, Arizona State win. Okay. Jim Leonard, who took over for Paul Chryst as interim head coach, as Chryst was fired early in the week. Jim Leonard, Wisconsin, win. 2-0 interim coaches. Friday night, in a remarkable finish in an otherwise sloppy game, Mickey Joseph, interim. Scott Frost wins on the road at Rutgers. We're 3-0 for the interim coaches. And so these players are starting to buy into whatever these interim coaches are selling their kids. And it really is impossible. It's impossible for these new coaches to come in. And finally, Brett Key, Georgia Tech, takes over for Jeff Collins a couple of weeks ago. He wins. All 4 interim coaches on Saturday won their football games. In Colorado, the last one, Carl Durrell, he was let go of the Colorado Buffaloes. They were on a bye week, so they couldn't lose. But I want to start off this morning, especially with a cheers to my Arizona State Sun Devils, but a cheers to the interim coaches who get thrust into the head coaching chair on an interim basis, a tag that obviously they would all like to be removed, and go and win on Saturday. It's a hard thing to do. So congratulations to all of them for getting a win, because you were certainly in a situation where you got to get your team to believe, and all of them did that on Saturday. By the way, Georgia Tech, a win over Duke, conference win. Arizona State, a win over Washington, conference win. Nebraska, by your first place, they're tied with Illinois, I believe, in the Big Ten West, win. So good on the interim coaches for getting a win, starting with something positive here on a Sunday Bloody Sunday. If you don't like it, I'll find you something in due time that you can get mad about on the college football Saturday. Let us start with the big game that we didn't think was going to be a big game in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. All right, remember this game now. We'll talk extensively about this with Paul Feinbaum, also here on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel. Remember, this was the game everybody pointed their calendar to, October 8th, because of Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban and the spat they had in the offseason about buying recruits, NIL, all of that garbage. We thought Jimbo had a team to potentially compete with Alabama. We know Alabama, this is probably one of the best teams Nick Saban's ever put on the field. And so we're thinking, okay, here we go, October 8th. CBS buys in. They put it in prime time. They flex their doubleheader. It's 8 p.m. Eastern. Everything's all set up until Texas A&M loses to Appalachian State and gets their doors blown off at Mississippi State. So now it's we're thinking, oh, great. Alabama's a 24-point favorite. This is set to be a blowout, and this is just not going to go well. Well, it needed one play. Haynes King, who played okay, Alabama 4 turnovers in this game, most in the game since 2015. Haynes King had a chance to win the game. And it was the play call, an out route, goal to go from, I think, the 5-yard line, a 2-yard line, rather. It was not a good play call, but it was also one of the more head scratching games I've seen in a while, only because Alabama just did not look like Alabama. And we're sitting there in studio. It's me, Jesse, and Joey. And we're sitting there, we're thinking, is Jimbo Fisher going to do this again? Is Jimbo Fisher, who's completely outmanned in this game, even though Alabama had Jalen Milroe at quarterback, who struggled yesterday. He had 3 passing touchdowns. It was good, 83 rushing yards, but turned the ball over, had an interception. It just wasn't the same offense. But could Jimbo really do the impossible and beat Nick Saban 2 years in a row? Pass falls incomplete. Alabama survives to stay undefeated, and has to be a sigh of relief in Tuscaloosa this morning, because it would have been insane for this Jimbo Fisher team, which, by the way, we'll get into this with Feinbaum, a Jimbo Fisher team where boosters are calling into Feinbaum's show saying a hitman is cheaper than buying out Jimbo Fisher. They were wearing tired of Jimbo Fisher already. Could you imagine had he pulled off the upset? But look, this is kind of a 2-part cheers. I don't mind sharing my cheers. Cheers part 1, Alabama, you hung on in a game you were a 24.5-point favorite, a 24-point favorite. That's part 1. Part 2, Jimbo Fisher, cheers for having your guys ready. Because look, I didn't think you had it in you. And it goes to show, what do we know about college football? A lot of times we know nothing about college football, because even Vegas missed badly on that one. So what a game it was. Haynes King, again, had the opportunity, got the start because Max Johnson's got the thumb injury, and Alabama escapes the jaws of defeat in a game they had no business being close with, and they get the win last night at home. Light show for everyone in Tuscaloosa. By the way, may I rant with you, the beautiful viewer of Sunday Bloody Sunday, for a minute? What in the hell's with these light shows? Like, I was all good for it 2-3 years ago. Like, it was the big thing. Like, oh, the lights go out and all that stuff and whatever. It turns into like a Cirque du Soleil underground European club show at like 3 a.m. But these things are getting so annoying. Like, I understand I might sound like get off my lawn guy here for a minute, but do we really have to do a light show for everything? Every time someone scores, lights go off, clubs going up, glow sticks. And I know I sound old, but that's just the light show. Can we just play and score? Whatever happened to the day of fireworks, right? You score a touchdown, firework goes off, mascot does the touchdown, boom, we kick, we play. Feel free to roast me in the comment section about this one, but stupid. Light show, get out of here. Give me the old-fashioned firework and mascot push-ups, and we're good to go. Thank you. I feel much better. Now, to the other side of the Alabama win, it happened earlier in the day with Tennessee looking very, very good against LSU. LSU fumbles the opening kickoff. Hendon Hooker, a couple of plays later, scores for Tennessee, and the Volunteers go on the road and get the win at LSU, setting up an undefeated matchup with Alabama in Knoxville this coming week. And this one's important because we have been searching for a long, long time, maybe for the past 3-4 years, of someone who could go to Georgia and say, and you know what, you're really, really good. You're dominant. You were the national championship a few years back. You were the national championship a year ago and you win. Fine. But we're here too in the SEC East. You're going to have to also contend with us in the SEC East. And I thought that's why yesterday was so big for Tennessee, because we have been searching for that team that could go in with Kirby Smart and go head to head with the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, I'm not saying to this point Tennessee would beat Georgia. I'm just saying you're going to get to know, as like I said with the week preview, is a get to know your team. We got to know a lot of Tennessee yesterday, and I thought it was great because you go into a hostile environment in Baton Rouge. LSU hadn't lost the opening loss against Florida State. They were starting to get some confidence, a little bit of swagger about them. But from the opening kickoff to the time Hendon Hooker and the Volunteers walked off that field, they looked every bit of the part, setting up some confidence with them. 40-13, the final against LSU. And we had talked about this on College Football Final, which, by the way, you can always watch College Football Final on demand on ESPN Plus. But you're talking about a Tennessee team that now comes into their game with Alabama with a ton of confidence. And why wouldn't they? With how they played Saturday, Hendon Hooker, 239 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jabril Small, 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hyatt, Brew McCoy. They had huge games for the Volunteers. They haven't even gotten back Cedric Tillman yet. And so every week, we always talk about this look ahead, or who is this team really? Tennessee does exactly what they were supposed to do. They get the win at LSU. Alabama survives nearly against Texas A&M, setting up this monster showdown coming up in week 7. So cheers to Tennessee for going on the road at LSU and absolutely bludgeoning LSU and setting up their undefeated matchup against Alabama. That's going to be our first real indication, our first real power matchup since things started to develop this season. We had some at the beginning of the year that we thought was going to be good. Ohio State, Notre Dame, a super program matchup. Some of those week 1 games that we got really excited about. And then as the season plays on, it kind of dictates who's who and what's what. Well, now we know who both Tennessee and Alabama are. They're going to be top 7 teams in the country, if not higher for Tennessee. This could be a fun one to watch. So Alabama, Tennessee get the win, setting up their fun game the following Saturday. Again, we'll break this down with Paul Feinbaum. Another game I want to get into is because it was get to know. Who are you? Can you come off your first adversity of the season and get a win? There was a ton of adversity in Raleigh last night, NC State, Florida State. First of all, we get the alert. We had to do a couple of pregame shows, postgame shows yesterday in studio. Our producer gets in our ears and he's like, guys, you want the good news or bad news? And we're like, well, Saturday is already 16 hours. Like, what other news you're going to throw us that we're going to love? He said, well, there's light issues at Florida State and NC State. We're like, well, what the hell does that mean? Like light issues? Back to the light show. Funny, they can't even get the lights on now. And there was a light issue in Raleigh where the light system wasn't working all the way. And they're thinking maybe they might have to delay the game or start it a little later. It ended up kicking on time, but there was some wonky stuff with the warm-ups. Anyway, they finally kick. And it was a big game for Florida State and NC State in conference because, like I said, both teams coming off their first losses of the season, bit of adversity. Florida State goes down to Wake Forest the week before. NC State loses one they probably shouldn't have the week. Well, now, strike that, reverse it. They go to Clemson. They didn't play well in the second half. Clemson was the better football team. So you have 2 teams coming off losses. Who was going to step up? Who was going to let that go to keep everything in front of them? It ended up being NC State 1917 in a close game, an entertaining game, but a game NC State had to win without Devin Leary because he got hurt, took a huge hit, landed on his shoulder. He was down on the field actually for quite some time. Training staff comes out. What we know about Devin Leary's status, the x-rays taken at the field were negative. He's set to get an MRI sometime today, Sunday. There's a chance the results get released after this thing's been posted. But Devin Leary knocked out. But NC State still finds a way to win 1917. And that is the ultimate call of a team battling adversity when your star starting quarterback is out. You're coming off a loss. You're not playing great. Florida State's got a little bit of momentum about them, and you get the win at home, 1917. And if you're a fan of one of these schools who comes out there coming off a loss or trying to just figure out what you are and who you are, you got to be feeling pretty good if you're Dave Dorn in the Wolfpack coming out of that one, 1917. So cheers to NC State, who found a way to get the win despite all the stuff going on, including losing their leader and starting quarterback, Devin Leary. Hopefully he's okay, but the hit was pretty brutal. We'll see what the x-rays have to say, or the MRI rather, has to say. By the way, we're taping this 8:45 a.m. on Sunday. Got to bed at about 3 a.m. Typically, Sunday mornings are about sleep deprivation for me. This one even more so. So if I misspeak, settle down. I'm tired. You put something in the comments. I'm good with it. It's an exhausting week. Have an event I got to go to later Sunday morning. So a little bit more sleep deprivation than normal. Here's what I want to get into. Really want to get into this because I believe it's going to be the most underrated, perhaps not discussed, big picture item throughout college football, because we like focusing, and we fight this every year. Who's in top four? Who's going to be the top four teams in the college football playoff? 5, 6, 7, and down. Who can work their way in? And that's still very much a storyline. But I'm here to tell you, if you're not paying attention to what's going on in the Big 12, you are missing out on some really, really entertaining football. Let's start in that noon window with the Big 12 in Texas and Oklahoma, the Red River Showdown, or as I said yesterday on TV, another version of a football red wedding for Oklahoma. Texas gets Quinn Ewers back. Sark coming off the loss a year ago, and what was the Caleb Williams coming out party where Texas got the big lead. Caleb, the true freshman star, comes off the bench for Lincoln Riley, leads the remarkable comeback and kind of a jumping off point for Riley and the Sooners last year. There wasn't going to be that yesterday at the State Fairgrounds in Texas. 49-0 Texas over Oklahoma, the return of Quinn Ewers, and the largest margin of victory in series history. It was the first shutout win over Oklahoma for Texas since 1965. 49 points are the most in series history. Think about all of these superlatives that Steve Sarkisian was able to get for the Longhorns in their victory yesterday over Oklahoma. And I've been to that game numerous times throughout my career in TV. The way it works is you start local TV and you kind of work your way up and hopefully get fortunate enough to get a job at ESPN, which I'm so fortunate for the opportunity that I have. And one of my jobs coming up was in a small market in Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma. It's a part of the Lawton Wichita Falls market. It's about market 135. Well, the great thing about this gig in Lawton, Oklahoma, met some lifelong friends, by the way. Random aside to this story, 2004, I'm sports anchor out there at this ABC affiliate in Lawton, Oklahoma. We had a job posted for a sports reporter, news photographer job. Let me say that again. Market 136. We had a job posted for sports reporter, news photographer. So you were even a full-time sports, but to get into the industry, people are flooding in. Anyways, I end up hiring a person by the name of Randy Scott to be our sports reporter, news photographer. And now that dope is here at ESPN with me. We've been friends since 2004 from small market TV, just a random nugget about our history and how small of an industry it is. But back when I was in Lawton, Oklahoma for the 2003, 2004 football seasons, leading into 2005, I left there in 2005 to go to Columbia. But it was the year Jason White won the Heisman Trophy for the Oklahoma Sooners. And the following year was a guy by the name of Adrian Peterson, who was a true freshman for the Oklahoma Sooners. So I love this Red River rivalry. It's one of those games. It's just one of the most entertaining college football atmospheres you can have. It splits right down the middle of the Cotton Bowl. And so I got indoctrinated into what this Red River Showdown means to both of these schools. Covered it 2 years there. Then when I was in Dallas, Texas at the NBC station, it was one of the bigger games of the weekend. And if I wasn't on the road traveling with the Dallas Cowboys, we would go cover the game because it was so big. And so you just get to understand what this means to both Texas and Oklahoma. And for Sark to go in there and do what he did yesterday against Oklahoma, who at this point, I believe yesterday for the Sooners and Brent Venables was rock bottom. You can't get any worse than being shut out by Texas 49-0, especially when you guys kind of come in with similar seasons, a couple of early losses, not feeling good about yourselves. I know Dylan Gabriel didn't play, and that's a large part of it. But the bigger concern for Oklahoma, your head coach is a defensive guy, architect of some of the best defenses we've seen in college football when he was the D coordinator at Clemson. NFL talent, finds a way to use them. That to me is the biggest concern right now if I'm Oklahoma. It's not that you just got absolutely beat down by your rival Texas. It's that the head coach who was brought in after Lincoln Riley surprisingly left as a defensive minded coach, and you got 49 points put on you. There was no doubt the offense was going to struggle yesterday. It's fine. But 49 points, blown coverages, second consecutive week, based on what we saw to Max Duggan in TCU the week before, it's going to be a long season in Norman. And if you're a new head coach, and I know everyone gets so antsy nowadays, win now, win now. I'm with you. We all want our teams to win. But sometimes when you switch regimes and you have a lot of kids enter the portal like Oklahoma had, sometimes you almost need to hit rock bottom before you can start building this thing up. And so if I'm going to take one positive away for Oklahoma fans, you didn't have your starting quarterback. And yesterday, we're going to chalk that up as your rock bottom to see what you can do now to build it back week by week. Is it doable to get it done? I think so, because it's Oklahoma. But cheers to Sarkisian. Cheers to Sark, the Longhorns, Quinn Ewers, everybody, Bijan Robinson. What a great win against your rival yesterday, 49-0. I'd mentioned, if you're not paying attention, how good the Big 12 is. Kansas State wins by 1 at Ames. And Vegas is good. I think that line closed at 1.5. Kansas State wins by 1 on the road in Ames. They're atop the conference. They are 5-1 overall, 3-0 in conference play. Oklahoma State has to survive against Texas Tech at home. They're 5-0 overall, 2-0 in conference play. TCU had to play America's darling yesterday with Kansas and Lawrence getting College game day for the first time in school history. They go on the road with Max Duggan, Sonny Dykes, early candidate for Coach of the Year. The Frogs are 5-0, 2-0 in conference. Then you've got Kansas, who's still in this thing. They lost Jalen Daniels yesterday. Hated seeing that because everyone's been on Jalen and what a great story it's been to this point. Hurt his shoulder. They were down 10-0. He leaves. Jason Bean has to come in, played a lot of football, played well, 262 yards, 4 touchdowns, had Kansas back in it till the end. But Max Duggan, 3 passing touchdowns for the 4th consecutive game. I mean, TCU is good, 5-0 for the first time since 2017, but that was the game we kind of all ID'd because everyone was on Kansas, and what a great story it's been, and it still is. But they're still in this thing. Texas, 2-1 in conference. They're still in play. Baylor, defending conference champs, 1-1. They're still in play in the league. So the Big 12 overall, keep an eye on this league the rest of the way because it is going to be fun to watch. I love the round robin format. They ended up doing that because they lost a couple of teams. So they got rid of the divisions. So keep an eye on the Big 12 as we move to the back half of October. Okay, 2 more things before we get out of here. First one, the Pac-12. I led off with Arizona State getting the win against Washington. It appears now that the Pac-12 has narrowed itself down to 3 teams. UCLA, who bludgeoned Utah yesterday physically, score-wise they didn't, 42-32. Now UCLA 6-0 for the first time since 2005. Chip Kelly, year 5, he has unlocked DTR and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. 299 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 4th career game with 4 passing touchdowns. Passes Brent Hundley for most touchdown passes in UCLA history. Utah now 2 losses, only 1 in conference. But the toast of the Pac-12, UCLA looked really good. Zach Charbonnet, UCLA might be the most complete team in the league. USC, they get a pesky Washington State team. They remain undefeated. They get the win. And then Oregon continues to dominate after that week 1 loss against Georgia. Bo Nix has been good Bo Nix all year. We always talk about it all the time. There's 2 Bo Nixes. There's the bad Bo Nix and the one that's really, really good. They hang a lot of points on Arizona yesterday trying to find that final score. But they beat Arizona on the road, which is on the road's a tough place to play. Here it is, 49-22. First win in Tucson, by the way, for the Ducks since 2011. So Oregon, USC, UCLA. Pac-12 is not out of this playoff conversation yet. It's going to be fun to see which teams continue to excel. So cheers to the Pac-12 and the undefeateds. And finally, I gave him a helmet sticker, and he deserved potentially 10 helmet stickers. I said last night on TV that I thought it was the most impressive individual performance we've seen all year. Israel Abanikanda, running back, Pittsburgh. I'm going to get his stats up for you because I want to drive home how impressive Izzy Abanikanda was. If you want to bear with me here for a second, pull up his stats. Take a sip of your Bloody Mary while I'm pulling these up, if you made a good one. All right, here's the stats. Izzy Abanikanda. Pittsburgh wins, by the way, 45-29 after the bad loss to Georgia Tech a week ago. Izzy Abanikanda, 36 carries, 320 yards, and 6 touchdowns. One more time. 36 carries, 320 yards, and 6 touchdowns for Pittsburgh. In a conference game against Virginia Tech, whose calling card for the entirety of their program has been defense and special teams. Cheers and bottle service for Izzy Abanikanda. For me, the best individual performance we have seen all season. So that'll do it for this edition of Sunday Bloody Sunday. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. I hope everyone imbibes safely. Week 6 is gone. Here comes week 7, the monster matchup between Tennessee and Alabama. We will break that down with Paul Feinbaum in the week preview. I'm on the road this week, UCF Bounce House, Gus Malzahn. So again, we appreciate everybody hopping on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel and consuming and imbibing the recap show you didn't know you need until you had it. Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Cheers.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.